How well do you know your next door neighbor? Could they be a spy working for a foreign government? You, like most people, would likely laugh at that idea, but in reality, the chance is higher than you think. 10 Russian sleeper spies have infiltrated the United States and have been here, right under our noses, for decades. On this week's episode of Two Crime Newsies, we dig deep into the spies next door. Hi, Tina.
Hey,
How
Jen.
are you?
I'm good.
Good. Before we sat down, Tina was like, hold on, my hands are crusty. I need my lotion.
I need my lotion. Because if I'm talking, I look down and I see that I need lotion, then I'm going to be distracted and I'm not going to be able to concentrate on what I'm supposed to be talking about.
Tina, meanwhile, is sitting here all glammed up from head to toe, looking super cute. And I'm sitting here looking grungy in my sweatpants.
You look adorable, first of all. And the only reason I look like this is because I'm old and I'm trying not to look like a wildebeest. You are younger than me. You're cuter. You can wear your hair all up. You can look all natural because you have great skin. So I don't want to hear it.
My no shower look.
Is that what it is?
Yeah, that's what it is.
Wow. Looks good.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Wildebeest, have you been watching Animal Planet?
Not lately. It just it popped in my head. I don't even know what it is.
It's a creature.
A real creature, apparently.
It is. Okay, so enough about Animal Planet and wildebeest. This week we are talking about Declassified Untold Stories of American Spies, Season 2, Episode 1, The Spies Next Door, Operation Ghost Stories. Now, you may remember we did a declassified episode a few weeks ago, and it was about Marty Peterson, who went behind enemy lines in Russia during the Cold War. And I'd say, that's one of my favorite episodes that we've done.
That's a good one.
And apparently the viewers really liked it too. So that's why we're doing another declassified episode.
Listeners.
What?
You said viewers.
Well, you know what I mean. Well, I mean, we're also technically on YouTube now, so they could watch a blank screen.
That's true. They could watch a thumbnail.
Yeah. So who knows? We are talking about the spies. And one of the good lines in the show is, if you want to know what an illegal agent looks like, step out of your house and look at your neighbors to the right, look at your neighbors to the left, and that's what they look like. That's what it makes illegal agents such a dangerous intelligence tool, because they look like anybody.
They look like you.
Or you. Why is it got to be me? They look like anybody. The goal is to disappear into a community, blend in, and not be recognized for who they really are, which is really scary.
Yeah, it could be anybody. They say the best cover for a spy is to just blend in. They can be teachers, travel agents, maybe in real estate or the financial industry, and you could be working with them.
And never know it.
And never know.
Tina, are you a Russian spy?
You'll never know.
Yeah, you wouldn't openly tell me. Leon Panetta, who is the former director of the CIA, is one of the people interviewed in the show. And he says that spying has always happened, especially with Russia since the Cold War. We had talked about that in the Party Marty episode. He says that Russia today represents a total polar opposite from the US in terms of what is valued. For a country that wants to be a superpower again, he says, intelligence is key, which I think makes total sense. In the show, we see an image of the SVR headquarters, which is the Russian Foreign Intelligence Service, which is our equivalent of the CIA within the United States.
Mm-hmm. And we hear that Russia deploys people to the US under a diplomatic passport. And not all of them are spies, but some are.
We also learn about illegals. Now, according to an 1982 KGB Connections documentary film, they pop it up on the screen during the show. Illegals are people who act like normal citizens. They secretly carry out the orders that are sent to them by Moscow. They're not here in their true name. They take on a false identity.
Like we mentioned, they can be anybody in the community. They can belong to local clubs, organizations, and what they do is they look for a person that they can develop a relationship with, and they find out everything they need to know about that person, their interests, their vulnerabilities, everything about them. And their goal is to gain access to classified material like political, financial, academic material.
We hear from a couple of different people on this show. We mentioned we hear from Leon Panetta. We also hear from a supervisory special agent for the FBI. That's a mouthful. Named Todd Shelton. We hear from another one named Craig Fair. He's an assistant special agent in charge of the FBI. And then we hear from another guy named Tony Rogers, who's also another mouthful, supervisory special agent, FBI Boston.
Love it.
Yeah, I figured I'd give it a little oomph
Yeah,
there
it's a
at the
good
end.
one.
So this case basically starts out in the early 2000s when the FBI became aware of 4 couples living in the United States. They lived in a couple of different places, didn't go into how these people were discovered. Apparently, that remains classified. Some were apparently in place in the financial industry in New York City. Some of them were working at colleges like Columbia University and University of Washington and Seton Hall University. And the reason they were working at these places is because it was giving them a wide array of people to get in touch with. And these people are in it for the long game. Like we had said, they were living under our noses for decades.
Mm-hmm.
They never know when they're going to be at the right place at the right time to meet that perfect target, as Tina had said. So these spies were living in Seattle. And the people who were living in Seattle were somebody named Mike Mazzoli and Patricia Mills. They were a couple. There was another set of spies named Richard and Cynthia Murphy who lived in New Jersey. Now, they were a couple as well. We had Donald Heathfield and Tracy Foley who were living in Boston, Massachusetts. And we had somebody named Juan Lazaro and Vicky Palaz.
I think so.
Palaz, who lived in New York. FBI found out that these sleeper spies were living in the US, and so we don't know how they found out. And then the FBI started going into their residences.
Mm-hmm. So Leon Panetta, who again is the former director of the CIA and former Secretary of Defense, said that these people were sent to the US to gain trust from people in order to spy for their country. We mentioned a little bit about that before. The FBI is gaining entry into the residence of these 4 couples, and they're looking for evidence of what they're doing and trying to figure out how they are communicating with Russia. And it's a super high risk thing that they're doing,
They're
going
looking
into
for-
people's homes.
They're looking for evidence of tradecraft.
That's right.
I love
And
that word.
they're also careful because they have to not upset the traps that these couples set up into their homes.
What's a trap? Like, what do you mean?
For example, sometimes people would vacuum their home on the way out the door so that they can tell if someone came in after them while they were gone. So you know how your vacuum leaves lines on the carpet. If someone walks over that, they're going to be able to tell, hey, someone was in here.
That's smart.
Yeah.
That's really smart.
Yeah, but then all the other people have to do is just vacuum their way out too.
But if you think about it, like that's a good idea. So that's kind of like a trap.
Right. That's an example they give for a trap. I'm not sure what else they do. I'm sure they come up with more than one trap.
They would have very, very clean carpets.
I mean, I don't see anything wrong with that.
By the way, I don't know if you've seen, I've been brushing stuff off of me. Did I mention this to you?
No.
So I have been like randomly dusting things off. So before you came over, I was cleaning my pantry and I had a bag of open flour on a top shelf and it dumped out on me.
No.
Yeah. So if you see me dusting white powder off, like don't think it's anything like nefarious.
That is my nightmare. How long did it take you to clean that up?
So I kind of just brushed it off and am kind of continuing to brush it off. So it might be a little while.
All right. Tony Rogers, Supervisory Special Agent, FBI Boston. I love to say these things. During the searches, they found that the couples had invisible ink.
That's so cool. It's
I
like
thought that
Harry
was like
Potter.
a kid's toy. That is kind of Harry Potter-ish.
I love it.
Yeah. And specially treated paper. I'm sure that works with the invisible ink. They had shortwave radios, and they used all of these things to communicate back to Russia. And
Before we go on, did you know that in prisons they sometimes use pee as an invisible ink? Did you know that?
What are you talking about?
Yeah, it's true. I watched this like documentary a while ago on the toughest prisons in the world or whatever. And one of the things that they mentioned is like inmates will write secret messages in pee and then write a letter over it. And they'll dip something like in their pee. And then I don't know what you have to use to be able to read it after, but apparently it's a thing. It's a thing. And that's how they'll write secret messages to people on the outside.
How the freak did someone figure this out?
I don't know, but do you mean how did people figure out that it's happening, or how did they figure out to initially do it?
Both, actually.
Isn't that crazy though?
Yeah.
Invisible ink is so cool, I think.
Are you sure this is a real thing? Maybe they were doing the same thing. Maybe that's what they mean by invisible ink.
Maybe. I don't know about that.
Okay, so the way they would communicate back to Russia is these couples were using all these tools that we mentioned to communicate with the SVR headquarters, which they referred to as center.
Center.
I like how you just come in with random words. We see video showing the FBI, right, bugging the houses because they found these tools. But the problem is they obviously it's invisible ink. Like they can't.
Yeah.
They don't know
what's been written.
What's been written. So they have to figure out what communication is being sent back and forth. So what they do is they put microphones hidden inside of their home. A microphone being hidden inside a living room lamp. That's something that they show us. And this would allow the agents to listen in on these people's normal lives.
Normal lives. Yeah, they're not very normal lives, but it's the appearance of normal lives.
So they would monitor what they were saying, how they would talk to their children and to each other. And my favorite part was that the children weren't even aware that their parents were spies.
That's horrible, I think. I think that's horrible.
I think it's super cool. Can you imagine if I found out my parent was a spy? Like, wow, that's pretty awesome.
It reminds me of, have you ever watched that TV show with Carrie Russell where they were sleeper agents in the US called The Americans? Did you ever watch that?
No.
It's so good. It's so good. You need to watch it. In one of the houses of the Murphys, which were Richard and Cynthia Murphy, they were living in New Jersey. The FBI had found what they call a tradecraft box. They describe it as a shoebox with all of their gear inside it. And they found notes and discs inside this box, and they ended up copying it all. Mm-hmm. They say that the Murphys used steganography.
I don't know how to pronounce that.
Which was developed in the mid-2000s, which apparently uses this special software to digitally encrypt text into a color picture that is on a web page online. And it's basically unbreakable without the keys. So in the show, we see a image of a flower, and it's like a brightly colored picture, all these things. And that right there, for instance, they would use this special software and digitally encrypt their message onto that image. And then someone back at the center or someone back in Moscow would then have the code to break this image, and the message would appear. So it could just be uploaded online randomly to a certain website, and the people at the center would know what that website was, and they would be able to open that image. Mm-hmm. Whereas if you or I would look at it, that image would just look like a picture of a flower. These parents, so Tina had mentioned that the kids didn't know that their parents were spies. And Leon Panetta says that they were not aware because their parents never spoke Russian at home. They only spoke English, and that truly became their whole identity.
That has to be incredibly difficult. Can you imagine?
I'm sure.
You're on
All the time.
all the time. You can't speak your native language. Like you
Mhm.
can't speak this language. You have to only speak English. Can you imagine if you messed up one day and just, said a phrase in Russian and your kid is just looking at you?
Well, I think about it too. And I'm like, what if, like you say something in your sleep or, that's all a possibility. But clearly, these people are so, one, they're invested in this lifestyle, but then also they're trained so well that those things don't happen. We see a picture of the Murphys, of Richard and Cynthia Murphy, at a backyard barbecue where they're drinking beer, they're drinking Coors Light beer, and it shows them eating burgers, drinking Coca-Cola, and truly, like, it doesn't get more American than that. I think that's like a 4th of July image of America right there,
That's true.
I mean, all you need is the fireworks popping in the background and, kids running through sprinklers, and like, that's Americana right there.
Yeah. Okay, so the show talks about that these couples have legends. And the legend is the name of their identity, their new identity. Well, here you go again.
I just do it to make you laugh.
I love it. It's the name of, that's what they call their new identity. So each legend is created specifically for each spy by the center. And legend building takes years. Some of these identities are completely fake, like the Murphys, the show says, but others, like Donald Heathfield and Tracy Foley,
who are in Boston.
Right. They are dead doubles, meaning someone identified a dead, in their case, someone identified a Canadian infant who had passed away, and they used that identity to create their legend using original documents like a birth certificate, I would assume, that they can request from the Canadian authority. So once you have a birth certificate, you can also get a driver's license, a passport. And after living in Canada for several years, they came to the US and ended up getting US citizenship. So that's how their legends were born in the case of Donald Heathfield and Tracy Foley.
So you get one thing and you're kind of on your way.
They also say part of creating a persona or a legend is to have a mate.
A mate.
Yeah. So that's very National Geographic.
It is.
So 2 spies would essentially partner up. They would marry, then they would go to another country to live under this different identity, also known as a legend.
That's a commitment right there.
Like, seriously,
you might not even like this person at all, but you're committed to them.
It's like an arranged marriage.
Mm-hmm.
That's nuts.
That's commitment.
I love this part. At one point, someone asked the person they're interviewing, "Do the spies love each other?" And the response is, "I think so."
Maybe.
I thought that was so funny.
I feel though, like, if you're forced to basically be with somebody for years and years and years, at some point you have to like get along.
Sure, but I mean, I suppose they kind of just grow on you, right? Like mold.
Like mold. Ew.
Like, you can't get rid of them. You might as well figure it out.
I think one of my favorite things that they talk about in the show is, and I don't know if this is because I absolutely love this show that they are talking about, but the FBI agent says that one of the funniest things that they heard, when they had bugged the resident of Cynthia Murphy and Richard Murphy, apparently Cynthia had called home one day and was asking her husband, and I use husband like in quote, asked him to get the kids from a play date or from wherever. And he said something about being super busy and super swamped and like that he couldn't do it right now, like just super swamped. Well, then the agents listening in on this heard the call end, and he went back and watched The Sopranos.
Oh my gosh, typical man.
I know. I feel like that's a typical like relationship thing right there.
My God, that conversation was hilarious. They're like a completely normal husband-wife couple. And to everyone who was monitoring them, the FBI, for years, they were doing this, and they just seemed like normal people.
They seem like
I
normal
can't
people.
believe at one point they just didn't give up. Like, these people aren't, this is enough. Like,
Yeah.
they're just regular people.
Whatever the tip was at the beginning must have been really, really
good.
So in 2004, we hear on the show that the FBI found out about someone named Christopher Metzos. Now, he apparently was an illegal traveler operating for Russia. He was in the US, give trade craft material and money to these illegal agents working in the US. And apparently, to this day, it is still classified how they found out about this Metzos man. But they say that in May of 2004 in New York City, in a stairwell of a subway there, video cameras caught Metzos conducting what is called a brush pass with a Russian diplomat. I was curious, like, what is a brush pass? Apparently, so what happens is two identical bags are exchanged. They literally, you can see video of this on the show, they walk past each other on the staircase of this subway station. And one person is going up the stairs, the other person is coming down the stairs, and they swap bags and continue walking. They never even stop.
It's
just
like a movie, like what you see happens in the movies, except this is real life.
Yes, except it is real life. So the money after the swap the money has gone black, which means it's moved from Russian hands to the assets hands. And Metzos later that day met with Richard Murphy and gave him more than $100,000 to sustain his lifestyle and, I guess, operation in the US. Now, the FBI then tracked Metzos to a small rest stop where he buried the rest of the money underneath an inverted brown bottle. I wrote, "This is real spy stuff." And agents were able to set up a camera to monitor that drop spot because they knew that someone at some point in time will come back for that money.
He makes a dead drop, like
Yeah.
we talked about with the Party Marty episode.
Mhm.
He buries the money and he marks it with an upside down beer bottle. Now, my husband is watching this with me and tells me that he has a plan if he ever found a briefcase full of money. Preferably, he says, $1 million.
Preferably. What is his plan?
Okay, he says he would not deposit it in his bank. He would keep it in his house somewhere and then pay for things in cash everywhere he could, like restaurants, grocery stores, department stores.
But I feel like there's only so much money you can pay in cash with. Like, you can't go, I mean, can you buy a car with cash?
I don't know.
It'd be nice to roll up to somewhere and be like, "Hey, I'll take that, $60,000 car and here's my wad of money." I feel like it's my kids at the book fair. So my kids had a book fair a couple of weeks ago at their school. And so one of my kids came home with a book that we already own. And I was like, okay. And then the other one came home with a diary. And I'm like, you go to the book fair and don't even buy a book. Like, you literally buy a diary. And it's just, all I see is them just walking around. I got money. Like, I need to burn it. Yeah.
Definitely that's what they're doing. Yeah.
Mhm.
So the FBI spends a lot of time watching, and we learn that time is valuable in this documentary. Some spies spend more than a decade doing spy stuff. That's what I wrote. They spend more than a decade doing spy stuff. Did you just say spy stuff? And the other countries find value in this time because they're banking on the spies eventually giving them so dang good, important info.
So they just wait it out.
They're in it, like you said, for the long game.
I don't have the patience for that.
Oh my gosh, me neither.
Yeah, it needs to happen right now. It's got to happen now.
Yeah. We'd be terrible spies.
Yeah, we really would. In 2005, we hear that there was a break in the steganography, which is the code.
That looks like a picture.
That looks like a picture. Yes, thank you. The FBI apparently is looking at the computer with the steganography on it, and there was a 27-character password on this. Now,
on the computer, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
27 character. It hurts my brain because I have trouble remembering a 5-character password.
I again thought this was hilarious because the spies wrote their password down. Then they think they're being cryptic because it's 27 characters. But the FBI is able to break it and they figure it out. And I wrote that I cannot believe a spy wrote down their computer password that has to be a serious sin of the spy trade.
Of the tradecraft.
Sure.
Let's get fancy here, Tina. I don't know why, but I've always really liked that word. So when I watched Zero Dark 30 for the first time, tradecraft. When I watched that movie Zero Dark 30 the first time, they like talk about tradecraft and all that kind of stuff, and I was just like, the word, I don't know. I think it's like because it's kind of witchy sounding.
Oh, I can see that.
Yeah.
Oh, because it sounds like witchcraft.
Yeah.
Okay. You're a very interesting person.
I'm yes. On the show, next, we hear from Craig Fair, who's the assistant special agent in charge of the FBI. They could see Russia wanting their illegals to get in with hundreds of different people who would have access to classified documents. They apparently became friendly with somebody who was working at the Department of Energy, who worked on nuclear weapons.
Woo! That's scary.
And a former national security official, which again, I feel is, you don't want a spy getting too cozy and chummy with those people.
No, man. No.
So we then fast forward to June of 2006, where on the show we hear that Michael Mazzoli, who is a spy operating and living in Seattle, Washington, he traveled from Seattle to New York and unearthed the dead drop box. So remember the money at the rest stop that was buried?
Yep.
That's the money. He randomly one day goes to this rest stop and digs up that cash.
2 years later, he went back to get the dead drop. The money was sitting there for 2 years.
Could you imagine being the person who was having to watch that feed
for 2 years
and nothing ever happened? Like,
no,
they'd probably get so excited all of a sudden, like somebody walking by, like, oh, this could be it, and then nope, they just are peeing on the tree over there.
This is ridiculous. First of all, why in the world would they wait 2 years? It's just for funsies. Let's see how long we can get away with this.
It's crazy.
It's nuts. Yeah. I cannot believe they would just leave that ridiculous amount of money for 2 years sitting in this shallow spot.
But who's going to realistically go out there and just start digging? Like, you and I don't go to rest stops and are like, oh, hold on, I'm just going to go over to that spot over there and start digging.
So much stuff can happen. It was underneath a bottle, right? That's what they said, a beer bottle or something. Yeah. Okay, so it rains. First of all, that bottle can easily just come up out of the ground and float away.
How many bottles have you seen pop out of the ground?
This is my imagination, Jen.
Okay, then. So in 2006, Canadian Secret Intelligence Service apparently intended to arrest an illegal named Paul Hempel. He was arrested, and the Russians became worried about the U.S. being able to narrow in on their illegal agents. Apparently, so they start getting worried in 2006. Then in June of 2009, so fast forward again several years, the FBI learned that Richard Murphy was going to have a meeting with a Russian diplomat at a train station. There's a video of this, okay? And the video shows the Russian diplomat remove a small satchel. And I love that word.
Why?
I don't know, but I feel like satchel is just something that they carried around like in the Middle Ages. And
what does it look like to you?
It's so, in my mind, a satchel is like this little almost round leather bag that has been aged because, you know, they've used it in battles and everything.
Like a bucket bag?
Kinda.
Okay.
So I don't know why, but I love that word. Plus, it's also in that movie.
Satchel.
With Zach Galifianakis or whatever, The Hangover.
I can't say his name.
And he's like, I have my satchel. I'm ready to party, guys.
He did. I forgot about that.
Yeah, it's like a little man bag.
That's funny, a man bag.
The Russian diplomat removes this small satchel from a bag that he's carrying, like a store bag, and puts it into Murphy's open backpack and continues walking. So it's truly like that other brush pass that we had talked about before. And apparently $300,000 was in that bag.
That's a heavy load.
I was going to say that has to be heavy. And apparently this was a big break in the case because it tied Richard Murphy and the Murphys in general to Russia, which that gave the US probable cause.
At one point, someone from the FBI on the show describes this whole thing like going to a fun house with a bunch of mirrors. So one side is watching out for the opposing side, and that side is watching them, but they don't know it, and no one's trying to get caught.
That just really confused me, but okay. I hope our listeners understand Tina's whole thing.
Just
right there.
Imagine going to a fun house and you're looking at, I don't know, a mirror, and you see like 11, 12 of you in one room. And imagine someone else is on the other side of those mirrors watching you, and you don't know that they're watching. It's anyway.
It's like a one-way mirror where people walk up to it and like fix their lipstick.
But both people are watching each other. Yeah.
Okay. So in September of 2009,
Zatoli.
Thank you. Michael Zatoli and Richard Murphy meet. Spy meeting spy in Brooklyn, New York.
Big no.
And they are meeting in person. And apparently it was supposed to be a brush pass where they just walk past each other and, hand the things secretly to each other and continue on their business. But the two met in person and they talked for hours on a park bench. Now, they're supposed to have no contact with each other as part of the illegal agent work. But I mean, truthfully, I feel like they probably needed somebody to talk to. And they talk about this on the show as well, because I feel you need that interaction with somebody who is just like you. You know what I'm saying?
Not if you're a spy, Jen.
Well, you're not supposed to, but I feel like at the end of the day, these people are also still human.
These silly gooses broke the rules. They sat on a park bench for more than an hour and a half just chatting it up. And the FBI thinks the two spies were just sharing stories relating to one another. I wrote, worst spies ever. Also, I take back that thing I said earlier about being a terrible spy. I think I'd be a great spy because I just want to do my job, get in, get out. The less chit chat, the better.
This is true. Tina was never a chit chatter when she and I worked together. I mean, she would boss me around.
Now you boss me around.
I do boss you around.
How the roles have switched.
Because you're no longer my boss. So
now you feel comfortable bossing me around?
Basically.
I like it.
I had said that these people are just human. And Leon Panetta, the former head of the CIA, agrees with me. He says that these people are just human. And it's good to think about the humanity involved in all this. And the fact that they are human beings who are being used as weapons of both countries.
Oh, now I feel bad for them.
So that's what I'm saying. You need that human interaction.
You made me feel bad for the spies.
Don't feel bad. At this point, the FBI starts noticing a change after the meeting between the two sleeper agents. It's getting harder and harder, apparently, for the FBI to document fictitious people. So the FBI says they started seeing a new breed of illegal agents. This new breed of illegal agents were agents that were using their real name. They mentioned two people in the show specifically, and one of them is Anna Chapman, who I have gone down the Anna Chapman rabbit hole for. We'll get into that. And then the other one was Michael Semenko. Now, they both came to the U.S. using their true names and true documentation.
Is that all you have to say about them?
No. So they did not reveal that they were in fact working for the Russian intelligence agency.
So I wrote down Michael Semenko. I bet Jen says this guy's hot.
No.
He's a spy, Jen. That's what
I'm saying. He's not hot. Why do you automatically go that?
Because you say that about every random person in every documentary that we've watched so far. There's always one random.
I either say that the girl is hot, that the guy is hot.
Anna and Michael are two good-looking people.
Anna Chapman, we'll get into this, but this woman has gone on to be a model. She's very, very pretty.
But that's their job too. They're very likable.
Mhm.
They get you to like them. You fall for it.
Yep.
That's part of what
The
they do.
spiel. Yeah.
Mhm.
So Michael Semenko came to the US to attend Seton Hall University. He speaks 5 languages, and he was basically trying to gain access to people who worked around the national defense system. Anna Chapman, she apparently obtained British documentation. The show says after marrying someone in the UK and taking his last name, she then divorced him, came to the United States, started working as a real estate agent, and she was kind of a social climber in the New York social scene. She was kind of described on other documentaries that I've watched about her. She was a party person
Right.
within like the elite circles of New York City.
A socialite.
Thank you. She had a lot of contacts through the partying, and she had a lot of men who were kind of like pining for her because she is very, very pretty. Panetta says at some point, one of those agents would try to infiltrate the CIA or the State Department or the FBI, and that is a huge concern.
Right. And at this point, the FBI is onto them, but they need proof. And they get it from, I wrote, another bad spy. The spy named Richard Murphy was fighting with his spy bosses about expenses. He was trying to argue that the house they lived in the US was his, that he had purchased it. And the SVR, or the center as we called it earlier, as they call it, this is where the spy bosses are, have to reprimand him and remind him of what his mission is. The center says that they own the house, not Richard. Then they tell him what he needs to focus on. They say, you were sent to the USA for a long-term service trip. Your education, bank accounts, car, house, etc. All of these serve one goal: to fulfill your main mission, which is to search and develop ties in policy-making circles in the US and send intels to center.
Russia started directing these illegal agents, specifically Chapman and Semenko, to move to DC, get into that like policy-making circle. So at this point, the FBI is like, we gotta move. It's only a matter of time until they truly infiltrate somebody super important within this policy-making front. And so we get to the takedown.
This was a massive operation. It was over a decade with the FBI watching them and learning about their operation. Moscow directing the legal agents to get closer to policymaking circles. And that's when they decided to arrest them. Go with the takedown, Jen.
The takedown. The FBI decided that all of these 4 sleeper agents, along with Chapman and Semenko, had to be taken down at the same time. Now, the FBI briefed Leon Panetta, and they came up with a plan that would not affect bilateral relations at the time between Russia and the US. Because on the policy front during this whole time, we, meaning the US, was getting closer to Russia. And it was clearly a very delicate political time. The concern at this point for a lot of people was, what will the takedown of these sleeper agents, as well as the 2 agents using their own name, mean for the US relationship with Russia? Panetta says, this is a story as old as time. They've been spying on us, we've been spying on them. Every once in a while, we find their spy, they find our spy. And Panetta said he did not think this was going to be a big deal. So they determined that the case, there was enough evidence that they would be able to prosecute. They collected evidence that the illegal agents did not, in fact, register with the US, that they were, in fact, Russian officials, which is something you have to do when you come into the country. You have to declare basically your business of what you're doing there. Are you there for pleasure? Are you there for work? Whatever. And by not doing that, they were in violation of US law. In June 2009, Semenko met an undercover FBI agent who pretended to be a Russian handler who gave him money to hide under a park bench, which we see video of him doing. Chapman, meanwhile, met with an undercover agent from the FBI who gave her a passport and tells her to give it to someone like her, meaning a spy. She apparently got a little concerned, and the next day she went to the police and said that someone had approached her about a passport and it was really strange. It was kind of sketchy. Now, while this is going on, literally that day, the G20 summit is going on, which is an economic summit that was held in Canada. President Obama was meeting with Russian government officials, and we are told on the show that the US had to wait for this Russian official to be out of the Western Hemisphere to make the arrest, so it wouldn't look bad. And on June 27th of 2010, the FBI learns that Donald Heathfield, who was living in Boston, Massachusetts, and his son are scheduled to board a plane to leave the US. And the FBI says they thought that these two were going to be going to Moscow. Now, if they get to Moscow, who knows if they'll ever come back. So now is go time. Like, we got to get this done.
The FBI is coordinating everywhere at the same time. Boston, Washington, and New York.
Yep, and Seattle. So it's Sunday night. FBI goes and knocks on the door, and some of these spies were having dinner, we're told. And the FBI told them they're under arrest. And we hear that none of the illegal agents were surprised. The kids were taken into custody, and a total of 9 illegal agents and 1 co-conspirator were arrested. Christopher Metzos was also arrested, and he was arrested via an Interpol warrant in Cyprus.
This is where the children find out that their parents are spies.
In the show, we hear from a neighbor who lived next to the Murphys in New Jersey, and she said that they seemed like super nice people. They were a quiet family, and that it's completely shocking that they live right next door.
Spies next door.
Mm-hmm.
Spies next door.
So these agents are all now in custody. Originally, the plan was to prosecute them, but Leon Panetta says he thought about a spy swap. Apparently, he's like super into spy books, which is awesome. And he wanted to see if his Russian counterpart would go for it. So he calls his counterpart in Moscow, and shockingly, to everybody's disbelief, the guy in Moscow acknowledged that these sleeper agents were in fact Russian assets and they were their people. So they set up an exchange, meaning all prisoners are free to go back to Moscow. All the agents who were arrested are free to go back to Moscow. The kids will be reunited with their parents. They board a plane and off they go. They go back to Russia.
It's the biggest U.S.-Russian spy swap since the Cold War.
Yeah, that's pretty hefty, I feel like.
Mm-hmm.
So I did some digging, and according to the FBI.gov website, the Russian Federation released 4 prisoners who were imprisoned there who had allegedly contacted Western intelligence agencies. And I truthfully had to find out what happened with Anna Chapman. Anna Chapman has been in several movies and in TV shows, including a show called Chapman's Secrets, which was released in 2015. She modeled for a time. She was even named one of Russia's 100 sexiest women. Semenko, meanwhile, has kind of stayed under the radar. I wasn't able to find much on him online besides the information about his arrest.
Well, he's a good spy.
Yeah. One of the questions at the end of the show, Declassified Untold Stories of American Spies, was the FBI agent who's being interviewed is asked if they still watch these spies. And he's caught off track by this question. And he says, just kind of like cheekily, I would say, we are aware of them. And he left it at that.
Mm-hmm.
So you truly don't know your next door neighbors.
Do you know your friends?
I mean, I'd hope I'd know them, but I mean, realistically, I feel like maybe, who knows?
Yeah, it's true.
You could literally be going to the grocery store and the person behind you is a spy or a serial killer or who knows? You don't know people.
I always think people at the grocery store is just serial killers.
You would. It's like the Golden State Killer episode that we did where the lady was like, he could have been behind me at the McDonald's.
Yeah.
Like, you truly never know.
Don't trust anybody.
Besides me, Tina.
That's true. Well, for now.
For now.
I'm watching you, Jen. I'm watching you.
Well, thank you guys so much for being with us for another week.
That was fun.
That was a good one. I really like these declassified shows.
This one was a good one. Party Marty was a good one. In general, again, spy stuff isn't my thing.
It's not your jam.
It's not my jam. These two were good stories.
Yeah. Good. Well, if you have any suggestions on stories that you would like us to cover, please reach out to us on Instagram, on Facebook.
To Crime Newsies.
Our email.
Yeah, tocrimenewsies@gmail.com.
Please rate us.
Oh, yes. Please give us a 5-star rating.
All right. Well, thank you again for being with us this week. We hope you have a great week, and we will talk to you guys soon. Bye.